and welcome to this continuing First Look exploring session looking at Alphonsus, Emperor of Germany. And we're going today from Act 2, Scene 3, as we get deeper into the dark political struggle that Alphonsus is sort of enacting upon the rest of most of the world, basically. Every other character in the play, Alphonsus seems to want to have them somewhat implicated and or deaded. So he's nice chap. Reading the middle of the play, as we find out whether more people are going to die. Someone died very early on in the play, and we're sort of hoping for more death. We're in that kind of mood this week. Reading today, Saxon is...
Hello, Lois. I'm in London.
Reading Jerick and Brandenburg today is...
Sarah Blake. I'm in Germany, and I just want to say that if any of my German friends stumble across this video, I am so sorry, and Robert Crighton made me do it.
I can't make anyone do anything, I have no power. Reading Richard today is...
Helen, based in Suffolk, and I don't believe a word of it, Rob.
Reading Edward today is...
My name's Elizabeth Amisu, and I'm an author based in Romford.
Reading Collen and Alphonsus is...
Hi, I'm Eric, and I'm one of the pains of hell, and Robert Crighton never made me do anything.
Reading Alexander Messenger. This is starting to sound like the tribunal, isn't it? Reading Alexander Messenger and Hedewick is...
Briony Sparrow, actor in Lincolnshire. I have not been coerced.
Reading Hans and Bohemia is...
Hello, I'm Helen Good, and if it wasn't for the fact that Sarah has very kindly supplied me with some data on what I'm about to say, I would be lost.
And reading Mentz and Empress today is...
Hello, I'm Lynn. I'm in the Northwestern United States, and Robert is sort of my Holy Roman Emperor. He can't force us to do anything. He has no real political power, but he has this sort of vague influence over what we do.
And I'm Robert Crighton. I have no idea what's going on. So without further ado, we're going to read some words from a play. Act 2, Scene 3, followed on from Alphonsus talking murderiness, and here we get to see that plot perhaps coming to fruition. Act 2, Scene 3. Enter Richard, Earl of Cornwall, like a clown.
How far is Richard now unlike the man that crossed the seas to win an emperor? But as I plod it like a plumper boar to fetch in fuel for the kitchen fire, so everyone in his vacation labours to make the pastimes plausible. My nephew Edward jets it through the court with Princess Hedewick, Empress of his fortune. The demi-Caesar, in his hunter's suit, makes all the court to ring with horns and hounds. Collen, the cook, bestirs him in the kitchen. But that which joys me most in all these sports is Mentz, to see how he is made an ass, the common scorn and byword of the court. And every one, it to be the same he seems to forget to be the same he is. Yet to my robes I cannot suit my mind, nor with my habit shake dishonour off. The 7 electors promised me the empire. The perjured Bishop Mentz did swear no less. Yet I've seen it shared before my face, whilst my best friends do hide their heads for shame. A bare show of outward full content, but grief thereof hath almost killed my heart. Here rest thee, Richard. Think upon a mean to end thy life, or to repair thine honour, and vow never to see fair England's bounds, till thou in Aix be crowned emperor. Allah, methinks there cometh company. The boars, I trow they come to hew the wood, which I must carry to the kitchen fire. I'll lie a while and listen to their tale.
And Richard retires. Enter Hans and Jerick, two Dutch boors. Dialogue written in appropriate dialect/language. Good luck, everyone.
Hier, Hans, wo bist du? Warum bist du so trug? Bist fröhlich. Kann will Geld verdienen. Wer will ihn bei Potztausend totschlagen?
Lass mich die Briefe sehen.
Methinks they talk of murdering somebody. I'll listen more.
Hans und Jerick, mein lieber Freunde, ich bitte, lasset es bei euch bleiben im Geheim und schlaget ein Engländer so tot.
What's that? Hans and Jerick, my good friend, I pray be secret and murder the Englishman.
Hier weiter. Denn ist kein Bauer nicht, ist ein Junge und hat viel Geld und Kleinotten bei sich.
He is no poor, but a gentleman, and hath store of gold jewels by him.
Noch weiter. Ihr sollt solche Gelegenheit nicht versagen, und wenn ihr getan habet, ich will euch sagen, was ich für ein guter Ral bin, der euch Rat gegeben habe.
Slip not this opportunity. When you're done, I will discover who gave you the counsel.
Was sagst du? Willst du es tun?
Was will ich nicht für Geld tun? Sie Potztausend, da ist er.
And discovering Richard.
Ja, bei Potztausend Slapperment, ist's. Hola, guten Morgen, Glück zu Junker.
Junker? Der Diebel. Er ist ein Bauer.
Du ist ein Schwein. Weg von mir.
Hola, hola, bist du so hoffärtig? Junker Bauer, kommt hier. Oder diese und jene Seeluch holen.
Bin ein Fürst. Red mich nicht. Ihr Schirms, ihr Verhatters.
Flatu, wer will you fürstlich traktieren?
Richard, having nothing in his hand but his whip, defends himself a while, and then falls down as if he were dead.
Oh Gott, nimm mein Ziel in den Haut.
Oh, excellent, hurtig. Ist tot, ist tot. Laat uns sehen, was he had for Geld bei sich. Holla, here is all enough, all that. Du ist für dich und du ist für mich. Und dit will ich dort auch haben.
And Jerick puts the chain about his neck.
Oh so, ans Nas. Gib mir die Kette hier.
Ja, ein Dreck. Dit Kätzte het hübsch mein Hals. Dit will ich tragen.
Da dich Potz. Welten Leiden. Dat sollt du nimmer mehr tun, du Schlemm.
Was soll du mich Schelmheit? Nimm dat!
And strikes him.
Dacht ich 100 Tonnen Devils. Ach, ich will dich lähmen.
Willst du haben oder stecken?
Ich will richtig haben.
Nun wollen, da ist mein Look. Slato!
They must have axes made for the nonce to fight withal, and while one strikes, the other holds his back without defence.
Nimm du das. Und da hast mein Ruck.
Nack einmal.
Strikes and hands falls.
Oh, excellent. Liest thou da? Nun will ich alles haben, Geld und Kett und alle miteinander. Oh, hurtig, frisch und lustig. Nun bin ich ein hurtig Junge.
And Richard rises up again and snatcheth up the fellow's hatchet that was slain.
Nay, Hercules, contra duas. Policy had gone beyond them both. But Schlem, wat keer dich, wirst du mich, gebe mir die Kette und Geld wilde.
Was? Bist du wieder lebendig worden? So muss ich mehren. Was willst du steken oder haben?
So will ich machen, du Schlem.
And strikes him down.
Bist du ein redlich Keitel, so weit redlich? Oh, ich sterb. Lass mich leben.
Seit mir dann Wett hat die Briefe geschrieben, ich nicht, sondern sagt die Wahrheit.
Oh, mein frommer, guter, edler, gestrenger Junker, da ist das Geld und Kett wieder. Du soll alles haben. Aber wer hat die Briefe geschrieben? Das werd ich bei meiner Seele nicht.
Ich doch still ich sag. The villain swears and deeply doth protest. He knows not who incited them to this. And as it seems, the scroll imports no less. So stirb du mir Schelm.
And Richard begins the process of killing Jerick.
Oh, ich sterb. Da dick der Devil Huller.
And as Richard kills the boar, enter Saxon and the Palatine. And I'll ask Briony, could you read Palatine for us, please, for this scene?
Wie dich ein loser Schelm, hast du deinen Gesellen totgeschlagen?
Lasst uns den Schlemen angreifen.
Call you me Schlem? How dare you then, being princes, offer to land hands on me? That is the hangman's office here in Dutchland.
But this is strange. Our Boers can speak no English. What, bist du more than a damned murderer? That thou art so much, we are witnesses.
Can then this habit alter me so much that I'm called villain by my friends? Or shall I dare once to suspect your graces, that for you could not make me the emperor, by seeing my sorrow that through mine honour lost, you set these slaves to rid me of my life? It far be such a thought from Richard's heart.
How now? What? Do I hear Prince Richard speak?
The same. Wonder that he lives to speak, and had not policy helped of our strength, these sturdy swains had rid me of my life.
Far be it from your grace for to suspect us.
Alas, I know not whom I should suspect, but yet my heart cannot misdoubt your graces.
How came your highness unto this apparel?
We, as the manner is, drew lots for offices. My hap was hardest to be made a carter, and by this letter, which some villain wrote, I was betrayed here to be murdered. Heaven, which doth defend the innocent, armed me with strength and policy together, that I escaped out of their treacherous snare.
Were it well founded, I dare lay my life the Spanish tyrant knew of this conspiracy. Therefore, the better to dive into the depths of this most devilish, murderous complot, as also secretly to be beholders of the long-wished-for wedding of your daughter. We will disrobe these boors of their apparel, clapping their rustic cases on our backs, and help your highness for to drive the cart. 'Tmay be the traitor that did write these lines, mistaking us for them, will show himself.
Prince Palatine, this plot doth please me well. I make no doubt, if we deal cunningly, that we shall find the writer of this scroll.
And in that hope I will disrobe this slave. Come, princes, in the neighboring thicket here we may disguise ourselves and talk at pleasure. Oh, fie on him, heavy lumber, how he weighs.
He says, dragging in Jerick.
The sin of murder hangs upon his soul. 'Tis no marvel then if he be heavy.
And exit, dragging in hands. So, you were hoping for some death, and by God, so we get a sort of Smeagol and Deagle situation of there are some precious things. No, I want the precious things and death, and then quite protracted Richard deathing Jerick there. I'm not sure you could say that's a hot-blooded crime, particularly. There seems to be quite a span between having him down and the coup de grace. So, issues there. Thoughts from the room, Briony?
What a lovely little scene that was. I think Helen, Sarah, and Alan deserve a little round of applause as well, because they handled that German beautifully, and that pigeon German beautifully. It was so colourful, and you can all the physical comedy going on. That would be absolutely hilarious. Obviously I know that there's bits of the German that is accurate, that do make sense. I think even without tidying it up and it not making a great deal of sense, it would still be hilarious just to watch all of that unfold, and all the physical comedy and slapstick that'd be going on at the same time. I like a bit. I'm not normally a slapstick fan, but if it's murdery slapstick, then I'm all for it.
Yeah, we're here for the murdery slapstick. Excellent, Eric.
I was just going to say that I like how polite the letters were. My good friends Hans and Jerick, please murder somebody. And also, what I found interesting was that I think we should do, if we do a second look on this, just have like a tally of the body count, like just sort of, 1 in the first scene, 2, and then start kind of like flipping.
I've had some particularly bloody plays where that would be really, really helpful, actually, just to try. I'm trying to remember. There was one particular where it really was just going, God, is anyone going to survive this test? I can't remember which one it was, but there was one in particular that was very, very, very murdery. And then we have this plan of. They're going to disguise themselves as the murderers, and so that's going to be a way of finding out who commissioned the murder. Lois.
Yes, I'm rather pleased about that, because I'd been thinking that in some ways Alphonsus seems to have brought off the perfect crime, certainly in the killing of Lorenzo. I mean, nobody is detecting him for that. So if he's going to be found out, it's got to be through these other plans. But then he's done this quite cleverly, especially using Alexander as his cat's paw.
Yeah, all they've got is this letter. And of course nobody recognised Richard straight away. I'm going to go with just he's covered in so much blood that he's unrecognisable. Not for any of this early modern disguise thing, because he's dressed in his office. So everyone, he sees. Is it just he's the only one really taking this cosplay as a Carter seriously, or is everybody doing it?
No, they're all. He says they're all doing it in his opening speech. I mean, and that it's really funny the way Mentz, whom everybody despises, has got the role of the jester, and everybody's making fun of him.
Yes, that everybody in their cases sort of clothes maketh the man. They're all playing into the role, and he doesn't want to play this role. He's not into it. Lynn.
I feel like there's a really kind of awkward change in tone or genre here. We've gone from what seemed like a pretty serious political tragedy. Alphonsus is evil, power-hungry emperor wannabe, and murders his closest advisor and pins it on everybody else, and then we turn into we make this pivot to this kind of comedy violence and slapstick and pigeon German. It seems a little jarring, and it might partly be because that's where we put the break between sessions, so that kind of to underscore the difference. But does anybody else feel like that's kind of a weird turn, and if the seams are going to show in production?
I'll go Briony, then Lois.
I think it's emphasised by where we've broken, because if you think about it, the scene before where they do the drawing lots and stuff wasn't that serious. That was all getting a little bit surreal and a bit lighter as well. So I think the fact that we've then had a break and come straight back in at this ridiculously silly physical comedy scene has probably just emphasised it.
Lois.
Yeah, I think this is one of these villain comedies that that audiences probably adored. I mean, an audience still would. I mean, even in the opening scene, the Alphonsus's vile plans, and then the fact that, you know, as you pointed out yesterday, Lorenzo pretty much walks right into his own murder, and then the scene with Hedewick, you know, and all this translation back and forth and English versus German customs. I don't know. It seems to me there's an awful lot of comedy in this, actually.
Yeah, I wonder if this scene is kind of telling us maybe we don't want to take the first few scenes of this play quite as seriously as maybe I was. That it's a little over the top and exaggerated from the beginning.
Elizabeth, Alan, then Eric.
Yeah, I'm not the best at German. So I was a bit lost in that scene, and I was just wondering, like, how many. I was like the blessed relief when they started speaking English again. How often would the early modern audience have known German? Because this play seems to me to kind of be saying that the audience would have got. Because before we had Hedewick, as Lois was saying, she only said a few lines, and they were kind of almost translated for us. But this time we just have the entire scene. Do they have a lot of physical comedy business to kind of make it very clear what's happening?
I think the point when they get to purely speaking in German, because we have Richard doing translation initially, but when they get to just speaking in German, they're picking up prop. Look, isn't this a lovely bit of business? I would like that prop. No, you can't have my prop. I will kill you for prop. Fighty, 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 death. That most of it should come across when we've got the actions in place, which, you know, we don't have here. I don't imagine the vast. I mean, I'm sure it's not an unknown language, but I don't know what the what foreign language knowledge was actually about in early modern. I'll go on a detour. Lois, then Helen, before I go back to Alan and Eric.
Yeah, I don't think people took German very seriously as a language until the 19th century, when quite a lot of people learned it because of philosophy and the German Romantic period and so on. I think, I remember reading in Lord Hervey's memoirs in the 18th century something about George II and his queen suddenly going into what he described as German gibberish. And he can't really have thought it was gibberish, but I mean, that was his attitude. They spoke French to each other, in fact, all the time at the court. I think a lot of people knew French, and a lot of people studied Italian if they wanted to read what they thought was probably the best contemporary literature. After 1604, Spanish became fashionable. I don't think German ever really did, although after 1613, there would have been a real connection with the princess's marriage to the Count, the Palatine elector. But then she went off to the continent with him. So there weren't a lot of Germans left in England after, I think, about May of 1613. That's what I find really interesting, is that this play seems to be written to some extent to satisfy a kind of curiosity as to what Germany was like. And most of the time, I think the German is either translated for you or it's pretty clear from what's going on. But I'm just impressed that the author actually seems to have known German.
Helen.
Yeah, I think Lois is absolutely right from the point of view of the literate and the educated. From the point of view of mariners, of traders, of merchants, German was an important language, and people did learn it. There were schools, there were books of, phrase books for German. There were phrase books for North American Indian language too, but there were phrase books for German. There were German language teachers, and anyone who traded abroad would be expected to learn German. The thing that we very rarely take on board properly is how few people in the world spoke English. At a tiny fraction of the world's population spoke English. And consequently, anyone who was in business had to learn other languages. And obviously, the German states, the Netherlandish, the German states were major partners for the East Coast ports.
Alan, Eric, Lynn, and then we will need to move on because we're...
Yeah, following up on that point, I mean, the Hanseatic League was a very important operation, certainly in the eastern part of England. But my thought in part on the scene that we've just done is that we had a couple of scenes of fairly heavy statecraft, which would probably have kept those in the posh seats engaged. And I got the feeling almost this scene we've just seen, while it fits in with that plot, was possibly played up to keep the groundlings amused.
As ever, I'll just suggest that the upper echelons had as low a taste as potentially as the rest of the class differentiations in taste is very different. Eric.
I was just going to say, I think you mentioned it last week or something when we were doing Queen's Arcadia, possibly, where we, in order to make things sort of more humor out of breath, I don't know. Anyway, whatever. Something like that, one of the comedies, where in order to make it as believable as possible, the characters have to believe what they're doing, but like it can be as hilarious as we want it. It has to be serious, but like, you know, between the characters, the relationships have to be as serious as possible. Otherwise, it won't be funny.
Yes, I think that's true, because both Hans and Jerick, I think it's that they are practical murderers. They're doing things, you know, they're what they're doing is not inherently comic, but the scene can be comic in the way it then plays out. I think you're absolutely right. I don't think they're not clowns turning to the audience doing clown things. Richard might. I mean, it's that fact that he's described as a clown, or you know, in this context more a sort of rustic because he's down as a carter. That there might be, because he's also doing asides to the audience, and asides inherently are funny in this kind of scene. That's the way the scene functions. Lynn.
Oh, I'm just such a big language nerd. I have to weigh in on the language question. So, in addition to Helen's observation that, you know, German was probably an important language of trade, English is a Germanic language, and the shift from Old English to Middle English to Modern English took place unevenly over the country. So, to some people living particularly in the East, where the Scandinavian influence was stronger, German might not have been as foreign sounding to a lot of people, even as late as this play was produced, because some Germanic vocabulary still hovered around, and Germanic pronunciations and so forth. So it might not have been as impenetrable to the early modern ear as it is to ours.
Anyway, we need to move on into Act 3, Scene 1, as we go back to one of these massive court scenes. Enter to the revels, Edward with an imperial crown, Hedwig, the Empress, Bohemia, the taster, Alphonsus, the forester, Mentz, the jester, Empress, the chambermaid, Brandenburg, the physician, Trier, the secretary, Alexander, the marshal, with his marshal's staff, and all the rest in their proper apparel, and attendants and pages.
Princes and princes superiors, lords and lords fellows, gentlemen and gentlemen's masters, and all the rest of the states here assembled, as well masculine as feminine, be it known unto you by these presents that I, Alexander de Toledo, Fortune's chief marshal, do will and command you, by the authority of my said office, to take your places in manner and form following. First, the Emperor and the Empress, then the taster, the secretary, the forester, the physician. As for the chambermaid and myself, we will take our places at the nether end. The jester is to wait up and live by the low crumbs that fall from the Emperor's trencher. But now I have marshalled you to the table, what remains?
Every fool can tell that. When men are set to dinner, they commonly expect meat.
That's the best jest the fool made since he came into his office. Marshal, walk into the kitchen and see how the churfest of Collen bestirs himself.
Exit Alexander.
Shall I go with him too? I love to be employed in the kitchen.
I prithee go, that we may be rid of thy wicked jests.
Have with thee, Marshal, the fool rides thee.
And exit Mentz on Alexander's back. I don't know if Alexander came back on again or whether his exit was just very delayed. He had a lot of people to get through there.
Now, by mine honor, my lord of Mentz plays the fool the worst that I ever saw.
He does all by contraries. For I am sure he played the wise man like a fool, and now he plays the fool wisely.
Princes and carefers, let us frolic now. It is a joyful day to Christendom when Christian princes join in amity. Schnick bowls of rapefaus and rhymefaus and the purest wine will spend this evening lusty upsy Dutch in honor of this unexpected league.
Nay, gentle forester, there you range amiss. His looks are fitly suited to his thoughts. His glorious empress makes his heart triumph, and heart's triumphing makes his countenance stayed in contemplation of his life's delight.
Good aunt, let me excuse myself in this. I am an emperor but for a day, she empress of my heart, while life doth last. Then give me leave to use imperial looks. Nay, if I be an emperor, I'll take leave. And here I do pronounce it openly, what I have lately whispered in her ears. I love mine empress more than empery. I love her looks above my fortune's hope.
Saving your looks, dread emperor, is guilt of bowl unto the health of your fair bride and empress.
Sein Gott es soll mein lieber drunk sein. So much Dutch have I learned since I came into Germany.
When you have drunk a dozen of these bowls, so can your majesty with a full mouth troll out High Dutch. Till then it sounds not right. Drauf auf es Geld noch eins tremeisert.
Sein Gott lass laufen.
My lord of Brandenburg, spoken like a good Dutch brother, but most unlike a good physician. You should consider what he has to do. His bride will give you little thanks tonight.
My lord, now give me leave to laugh. He need not therefore shun one beaker full. In Saxon land, you know it is the use that the first night the bridegroom spares the bride.
Ah, 'tis true indeed. That I had quite forgotten.
How understand I that?
That the first night the bride and bridegroom never sleep together.
That may well be. Perchance they wake together.
Nay, without fallace, they have several beds.
Aye, in one chamber. That's most princely.
Not only several beds, but several chambers, locked soundly too with iron bolts and bars.
Believe me, nephew, that's the custom here.
Oh, my good aunt, the world is now grown new. Old customs are but superstitions. I'm sure this day the presence all can witness. This presence all can witness. The high and mighty Prince, the Archbishop of Collen, who now is busy in the scullery, joined us together in St. Peter's Church, and he that would disjoin us tonight, twixt jest and earnest be it proudly spoken, shall eat a piece of ill-digesting iron. Bride, wilt thou dis nicht bin me schlapen?
Da behüte mich Gott vor. Ich hoffe, Eure Majestat will von mir nicht begehren.
What says she? Behü mich Gott vor?
She says, God bless her from such a deed.
Tush, Empress, clap thy hands upon thy head, and God will bless thee. I have a Jacob's staff, shall take the elevation of the pole, for I have heard it said, the Dutch North Star is a degree or two higher than ours.
Nay, though we talk, let's drink. And Emperor, I'll tell you plainly what you must trust unto. Can they deceive you of your bride tonight? They'll surely do it. Therefore, look to yourself.
If she deceive me not, let all do their worst.
Assure you, Emperor, she'll do her best.
I think the maids in Germany are mad. Ere they be married, they will not kiss, and being married, will not go to bed. We'll drink about. Let's talk no more of this. Well-warned, half-armed, our English proverb says.
And enter Alexander.
Hola, Marshal, what says the cook? Like he thinks we have fed so well already that we disdain his simple cookery.
Faith, the cook says so, that his office was to dress a mess of meat with that wood which the English prince should bring in. But he hath neither seen Dutch wood nor English prince. Therefore, he desires you hold him excused.
I wonder where Prince Richard stays so long.
An't please your majesty, he's come at length, and with him has he brought a crew of boors, and heaps boar makins, fresh as flowers in May, with whom they mean to dance a Saxon round, in honour of the bridegroom and his bride.
So has he made amends for his long tarrying? I prithee, Marshal, and into the presence.
Lives Richard then? I thought thou'dst made him sure.
Oh, I could tear my flesh to think upon it. He lives, and secretly hath brought with him the Palsgrave and the Duke of Saxony, clad like two boars, even in the same apparel that Hans and Jerick wore when they went out to murder him. It now behoves us to be circumspect.
It likes me not. Away, Marshal, bring them.
And exit Alexander.
I long to see this sport's conclusion.
Is not a lovely sight to see this couple sit sweetly billing like two turtle doves?
I promise you it sets my teeth an edge that I must take mine Empress in mine arms. Come hither, Isabel, though thy robes be homely, thy face and countenance holds colour still.
But before lots of people enter this quite long scene, we've got a couple of things to unpack here. We have another wonderful example of early modern disguise being crap. You know, it's not like one of these plays where I put on a hood and therefore no one can recognise me. It's they've just done some cosplay of the murderers, and it's just I'm you know, utterly seen through utterly immediately. I love that. That makes me very happy. I obviously there's quite a lot of questions about Edward and his intended and the nature of that relationship and how that's all going. But I do really love the line when he says, oh yeah, the high and mighty prince, the Archbishop of Cologne, who now is busy in the scullery, joined us together. It's just, I love that, just going because of the roles they're playing. It's just such a lovely line. That tickled me. Thoughts as we pause in the scene. Anyone wants to leap in on either of those two primarily little threads there? The return of the boars in or the other. Lynn, and then Lois.
Yeah, I'm wondering what this scene is telling us about rank and about relative status. The little speech that Alexander has at the very beginning is very interesting. Princes and princes superiors, as if there were such a thing. Lords and lords fellows, gentlemen and gentlemen's masters. I mean, all this playing around with status and rank, and the lowest become the highest and highest become the lowest in this game. Is it sort of making fun of the whole idea of status, or is this supposed to make us really uncomfortable because when status is undermined, social order is undermined? There's something really interesting going on with rank and hierarchy here, but I can't quite figure out what I think it is.
I really like that thought. I mean, especially as immediately after this, we've got Mentz who's playing the fool, and we already know that everyone just thinks he's a twonk,
right.
And he leaps onto Alexander's back and rises. So he's clearly he's leaned into playing a fool quite extremely.
And that great little chiasmus where he was a fool when he was supposed to be a wise man, and now he plays the fool wisely. Something going on there.
Lois.
Yeah, I find this all very funny. What's really odd about it is that, we've got lots of plays where there's a play within a play, but, this one, it's kind of like a giant play within a play, except that everybody knows that they're in the play, and this sort of constant kind of playing off between their real role and their impersonated role.
Other thoughts, Eric, and then Helen.
I was going to say that I like that moment of I wonder where Prince Richard stays so long. And then he's, you kind of expect that there's going to be a long pause between that one and sort of the next line, because he doesn't expect that Richard is going to be alive. We should go look for Richard is maybe what he's thinking. And then just sort of Alexander bursts his bubble quite massively.
Yeah.
Helen, then Alan.
Yeah, I mean, two things. Firstly, I'm trying to place this in a time of year. I mean, this is very much the Lord of Misrule, the boy bishop, the inversion, from Saturnalia, all the rest of it. So, I mean, this is not an unfamiliar theory, way of celebrating a festival. But I mean, so far, it hasn't been tied to a particular point in the year. And the other thing is, it was established for me, but I don't know about anyone else, that the Empress is in fact the fixer here. None of these lots were arbitrary. She decided, she pretended to be pulling the lots out, but in fact, she decided who was going to play what, I believe.
Alan.
Yeah, I mean, I think whether it's the seasonality thing or whether this was deemed to be an appropriate way to celebrate a wedding is a moot point. But apologies to everybody. I'm going to have to drop at this point. I think there's quite a sequence involving Richard, so probably better if somebody else takes that on at this stage. And I'll see you soon.
Righto. Yes. Other thoughts in the room while I just quietly figure out the best movement of forces.
No panicking. No panicking.
Oh no panicking. I think I know what I'm going to do.
Okay, cool. Good.
But any additional thoughts before we read on?
I really love the more people they put on the stage, the more they kind of crowd the stage with actors, the more I think that the contrast between the characters comes out, and I just really, really like it. So when I saw enter Alexander, Collen, Mentz, and I was just like, good, just bring more people onto the stage. Let's see what happens now.
Yeah.
Eric.
I was going to say that I was kind of amused how Edward has managed to learn quite substantial German in a small amount of time, but obviously, in the same day, he's kind of he must be hanging on to sort of Hedwig quite closely, sort of going, so how do we say this? How do we say that? And sort of, and I don't know.
I think he's got cue cards. I think because he only does about 2 or 3 lines, and I think they're relative. They're prepared for the occasion, and I almost like the idea that he sort of goes, okay, how do I respond to that?
Flashcards.
Yeah.
And they're in the wrong order.
Yeah. He drops them on the floor. Lois.
Yeah, well, I've been rather impressed that Richard had so much German. And the play is a very good advertisement for studying languages. I mean, if it enables you to hear somebody reading, murder the Englishman, he's got lots of money on him. Yeah.
Anyway, we will need to move on. Sarah, I'm going to ask you to read Richard as well as Brandenburg. You are both in the same scene. I don't know if you talk to each other, but different voices. I'm sure you can manage that. I'm going to step in to read Palatine as well. So, yes, lots of things going on here. We're going to continue the scene. We've heard that Richard and Palsgrave and the Duke of Saxony are coming back in disguise, which isn't very good. And indeed, here they come. Enter Alexander, Collen, Mentz, Richard, Saxon, Palatine, Collen as cook with a gammon of raw bacon and links or pudding in a platter. Richard, Palatine, Saxon, Mentz like clowns, with each of them a mitre with cuirasses on their heads.
Dread Emperor and Empress, for today I, your appointed cook until tomorrow, have by the marshals sent my just excuse and hope your highness is therewith content. Our carter here, for whom I now speak, says that his axle tree is broke by the way. That is his answer, and for you shall not famish, he and his fellow boors of the next door have brought a schnicken of good raw bacon, and that's a common meat with us, unsawed, desiring you would not scorn the fare. 'Twill make a cup of wine taste nipitate.
Welcome, good fellows. We thank you for your present.
So spiel fresh up and let us rummer tanzen.
With your bride?
Alas, I cannot dance your German dances.
I do beseech your highness, mock us not. We Germans have no changes in our dances, and Alamein and an upspring, that is all. So dance the princes, burghers, and the boors.
So danced our ancestors for 1,000 years.
Edward.
Ah, that's Edward, yes.
Yeah.
Next. Whoever is Edward? Elizabeth.
So dance. I'm so danced.
It is a sign. The two.
Ah, that's the Ed.
Yeah.
It is a sign the Dutch are now not newfangled. I'll follow in the measure. Marshal, lead.
Alexander and Mentz have a fore-dance, with each of them a glass of wine in their hands. Then Edward and Hedewick, Palatine and Empress, and the two other couples after drum and trumpet. The Palatine whispers with the Empress.
I think the boar is amorous of my Empress, fortbrouwe and liefel morgen when thou comes to house. Now is your greatest time to steal away. Look to it, or else you'll lie alone tonight.
And Edward steals away the bride.
Gelt Bowery.
Sam Gott! And the Palatine requests the Empress. Jungfrau helpe mich doch und Jofrau Donk. Skirt, gute Freund und fröhlich Donk.
Sam Gott, mein Freund, ich will den Bescheid tun.
Alphonsus takes the cup of the Palatine and drinks to the King of Bohemia, and after he have drunk, puts poison into the beaker.
Oh, yeah.
This I drink unto your highness' health. It is the first since we joined in office.
I thank your majesty. I'll pledge you half.
As Bohemia is a-drinking, ere he have drunk it all out, Alphonsus pulls the beaker from his mouth.
Hold, your majesty. Drink not too much.
What means your highness?
Methinks that something grates between my teeth. Pray there not be poison in the bowl.
Marry, God forbid.
So were I peppered.
I highly do mistrust this Schlemish Moor. Boor, lay hands on him. I'll make him drink the rest.
What what you will not me matchen?
Drink out, oder der will soll dich holen.
I give you to Freilin, ich will gehen drink.
Drink not, Prince Palatine. Throw it on the ground. It is not good to trust his Spanish flies.
And the Palatine spills the wine.
Saxon and Pulsegrave. This cannot be good.
'Twas not for naught my mind misgave me so. This hath Prince Richard done to entrap our lives.
No, Alphonsus, I disdain to be a traitor.
And they draw. The Empress is muted.
We cannot hear her cries.
Oh, sheath your swords, forbear these needless broils.
Away, I do mistrust thee as the rest.
Lords, hear me speak to pacify these broils. For my part, I feel no distemperature. How do you feel yourself?
I cannot tell. I'm not ill, and yet methinks I am not well.
Were it a poison, 'twould begin to work.
Not so. All poisons do not work alike.
If there were poison in, which God forbid the Empress and myself and Alexander have cause to fear as well as any other.
Why didst thou throw the wine upon the earth? Hadst thou but drunk, thou hadst satisfied our minds.
I will not be enforced by Spanish hands.
If all be well with us, that shoes shall serve. If not, the Spaniard's blood will be revenged.
Richard, who is now Sarah.
Sorry. Your Majesty is more afraid than hurt.
For me, I do not fear myself a whit. Let all be friends and forward with our mirth.
Enter Edward in his nightgown and his shirt.
Nephew, how now? Is all well with you?
I'll lay my life the prince has lost his bride.
I hope not so. She is but strayed a little.
Your Grace must not be angry, though we laugh.
If it had happened by default of mine, you might have worthily laughed me to scorn. But to be so deceived, so overreached, even as I meant to clasp her in mine arms. The grief is intolerable, not to be guessed or comprehended by the thought of any, but by a man that hath been so deceived, and that's by no man living but myself.
My princely son-in-law, God give you joy.
Of what, my princely father?
Of my daughter, your new betrothed wife and bedfellow.
I thank you, father, indeed. I must confess, she is my wife, but not my bedfellow.
How so, young prince? I saw you steal her hence, and as me thought, she went full willingly.
'Tis true, I stole her finely from amongst you, and by the Archbishop of Collen's help, got her alone into the bride chamber, where having locked the door, thought all was well. I could not speak, but pointed to the bed. She answered, "Ya," and gan for to unlace her. I, seeing that, suspected no deceit, but straight untrussed my points, uncased myself, and in a moment slipped between the sheets. There lying in deep contemplation, the princess of herself drew near to me, gave me her hand, spake prettily in Dutch, I know not what, and kissed me lovingly. And, as I shrank out of my lukewarm place to make her room, she clapped thrice with her feet, and through a trapdoor sunk out of my sight. Knew I but her confederates in the deed, I say no more.
Tush, cousin, be content. So many lands, so many fashions. It is the German use. Be not impatient. She will be so much welcomer tomorrow.
Come, nephew, we'll be bedfellows tonight.
Nay, if I find her not, I'll be alone. I have good hope to ferret out her bed. And so good night, sweet princes, all at once.
Good night to all. Marshal, discharge the train.
To bed, the marshal cries 'tis time.
And with the flourish of cornets, there's a bit of a sea change in the scene. Okay, so with one bound, Hedewick is free.
Whoosh!
Down she goes. Briony.
Well, that's a bed trick we've not seen before. The old evil villain emergency shoot.
Yeah,
Love it.
In the event of an unwelcome marriage, break glass and. I mean, we have had caves underneath beds before, but we've never had emergency trapdoors before. So that's a new one on me. Who wanted to leap in? I think Lynn, were you waving?
No, I'm just like, that was not on my bingo card. And what's the Empress's deal? It's like, no, it's fine, it'll be fine. And she's just kind of trying to smooth everything over because she's just sort of desperate to make peace, or does she know what's going on? It's like, oh yeah, trapdoors are just a custom here. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, everybody else is really quite, oh yeah, this happens all the time. It's a thing. Eric.
Trying to work out, like, they were on the verge of fighting, and then suddenly Edward comes in to diffuse the tension. Like, what are they just standing there with swords going?
Yeah.
Poison plot, and everyone's sort of going, what, I feel okay. We probably haven't been poisoned, have we? It's like that plot just went nowhere. I was thinking that's going to go somewhere, and then it doesn't. Helen.
It was a long time ago, but didn't Lorenzo say he had slow-acting poisons that could be given, and then
Yes,
because you didn't immediately fall over, everybody would assume that the poisoner wasn't the poisoner.
But that then raises the interesting question of why draw attention to the poison? If people are going to be poisoned ages away, it doesn't matter when they were poisoned. And by highlighting the incident now, you're actually making it more. I don't understand the poisoner's logic here. Anyway, Lois.
Yeah, I mean, Alphonsus is trying to frame Richard for poisoning people. I'm surprised nobody says, how do you know so much about poisons? Because he's the one that says that, there are some poisons that don't act immediately, which is obviously something he learned from Lorenzo. But the thing isn't really followed up, at least not now. Maybe it will be in a couple of minutes.
Well, yeah. So it depends on which poison was used, we've been told by the stage direction there's it's poison, but actually making that clear for the audience, it could be quite tricky. Anyway, we're still in the middle of a scene. There's still stuff going on, even though most people have exited. Stuff is still going on. This act is just never ending. But I just want to crack on with some action, because after the flourish of cornets and basically everybody exits, apart from Alexander conceals himself behind the arras. Remaining on stage, not exiting, is Saxon, Richard, Palatine, Collen, and Empress.
Now, princes, it is time that we advise. Now we are all fast in the fowler's gin, not to escape his subtle snares alive, unless by force we break the nets asunder. When he begins to cavil and pick quarrels, I will not trust him in the least degree.
It may beseem me evil to mistrust my lord and emperor of so foul a fact, but love unto his honor and your lives makes me with tears entreat your excellencies to fly with speed out of his dangerous reach. His cloudy brow foretells a sudden storm of blood, not natural, but prodigious.
Castle gates are shut. How should we fly? But were they open, I would lose my life ere I would leave my nephew to the slaughter. He and his bride were sure to bear the brunt.
But I get out of doors, I'd venture that, and yet I hold their persons dear enough. I would not doubt, but ere the morning sun should halfway run his course unto the south, to compass and begirt him in his fort with Saxon Landsknechts and brunt-bearing Switzers, who lie in ambuscado not far hence, that he should come to composition and with safe conduct bring unto our tents both bride and bridegroom and all other friends.
My chamber window stands upon the wall, and thence with ease you may escape away.
Prince Richard, will you bear me company?
I will, my lord.
And you, Prince Palatine?
Oh, the Spanish tyrant hath me in suspect of poisoning him. I'll therefore stay it out. I'll fly upon to accuse myself.
If need require, I'll hide the Palatine until tomorrow, if you stay no longer.
God be with us. Ere tomorrow noon, we'll be with ensigns spread before the walls. We leave dear pledges of our quick return.
May the heavens prosper your just intents.
Exeunt, and Alexander comes forward.
This dangerous plot was happily overheard. Here didst thou listen in a blessed hour.
Yes, nothing like hiding behind an arras to find out what your enemies are up to. Enter Alphonsus.
Alexander, where dost thou hide thyself? I've sought thee in each corner of the court, and now or never, but thou must play the man.
And now or never must your highness stir. Treason hath round encompassed your life.
I have no leisure now to hear thy talk. Seest thou this key?
Intends your majesty that I should steal into the prince's chambers and sleeping stab them in their beds tonight? That cannot be.
Wilt thou not hear me speak?
The Prince of England, Saxon, and of Collen are in the Empress chamber privily.
All this is nothing. They would murder me. I come not there tonight. Seest thou this key?
They mean to fly out at the chamber window and raise an army to besiege your grace. Now may your highness take them with the deed.
The Prince of Wales, I hope, is none of them.
Him and his bride by force they will recover.
What makes the cursed Palgrave reign?
Him hath the Empress taken to her charge, and in her closet means to hide him safe.
To hide him in her closet? Of bold deeds the dearest charge that e'er she undertook. Well, let them bring their complots to an end. I'll undermine to meet them in their works.
Will not your grace surprise them ere they fly?
No, let them bring their purpose to effect. I'll fall upon them at my best advantage. Seest thou this key? Take it, Alexander. there. And yet take it not, unless thou be resolved. Thus I'm fond to make a doubt of thee. Take it, I say, it doth command all doors, and will open way to make thy revenge.
I know not what your majesty doth mean.
Hide thee with speed into the inner chamber next to the chapel, and there thou shalt find the dainty trembling bride couched in her bed, having beguiled her bridegroom of his hopes, taking her farewell of virginity, which she tomorrow night expects to lose. By night all cats are grey, and in the dark she will embrace thee for the Prince of Wales, thinking that he hath found her chamber out. Fall to thy business and make few words, and having pleased thy senses with delight, and filled thy beating veins with stealing joy, make thence again before the break of day. What strange events will follow this device, we need not study on, our foes shall find. How now? How standst thou? Hast thou not the heart?
Should I not have the heart to do this deed, I were a bastard villain and no man. Her sweetness and the sweetness of revenge tickles my senses in a double sense, and so I wish your majesty good night.
Good night, sweet Venus, prosper thy attempt.
Sweet Venus and grim eight I implore, stand both of you to me auspicious.
And exit Alexander, leaving Alphonsus.
It had been pity of his father's life, whose death hath made him such a perfect villain. What murder, rack, and causes enmity twixt dearest friends that are my strongest foes, will follow suddenly upon this rape. I hope to live and see and laugh thereat. Yet this piece of practice is not all. The king of Bohemia, though he little feel it, because in 20 hours it will not work, hath from my knife's point sucked his deadly bane, whereof I will be least of all suspected, for I will feign myself as ill as he, and blind mine enemies' eyes with deadly groans. Upon the Palsgrave and mine Empress, heavy suspect shall light to bruise their bones. Though Saxon would not suffer him to taste the deadly poison provided for him, he cannot save him from the sword of justice, when all the world shall think that, like a villain, he hath poisoned 2 great emperors with one draught. That deed is done, and by this time I hope the other is a-doing. Alexander, I doubt it not, will do it thoroughly. While these things are brewing, I'll not sleep, but suddenly break open the chamber doors and rush upon my Empress in the Palsgrave. Holla! Where's the captain of the guard?
Enter captain and soldiers. Who wants to be a captain? Helen, be a captain. Oh, Lois, be a captain.
What would your majesty?
Take six Trabants, well armed, and follow.
And they break with violence into the chamber, and Alphonsus trails the Empress by the hair. Enter Alphonsus, Empress, soldiers, etc.
Come forth, thou damned witch, adulterous whore, foul scandal to thy name, thy sex, thy blood.
Gentle husband, pity me.
Canst thou deny thou wert confederate with my arch enemies that sought my blood, and like a strumpet through thy chamber window hast with thine own hands helped to let them down, with an intent that they should gather arms, besiege my court, and take away my life.
Oh, my Alphonsus!
Thy Alphonsus whore!
Oh, pierce my heart, trail me not by the hair. What I have done, I did it for the best.
So for the best advantage of thy lust hast thou in secret, Clytemnestra-like, hid thy Aegisthus, thy adulterous love.
Heaven be the record twixt my lord and me, how pure and sacred I do hold thy bed.
Art thou so impudent to belie the deed? Is not the Palsgrave hidden in thy chamber?
I have hid the Palsgrave, I confess, but to no ill intent. Your conscience knows.
Thy treasons, murders, incests, sorceries are all committed to a good intent. Thou knowest he was my deadly enemy.
By this device I hope to make you friends.
Then bring him forth, we'll reconcile ourselves.
Should I betray so great a prince's life?
Thou holdst his life far dearer than thy lord's. This very night hast thou betrayed my blood. But thus, and thus will I revenge myself.
Trailing her by the hair.
And but thou speedily deliver him, I'll trail thee through the kennels of the street and cut the nose from thy bewitching face, and into England send thee like a strumpet.
pull every hair from off my head, drag me at horses' tails, cut off my nose. My princely tongue shall not betray a prince.
That will I try.
Strikes her.
Oh, heaven, revenge my shame.
Enter Palatine. Who wants to be Palatine? Helen be Palatine.
Is Caesar now become a torturer, a hangman of his wife, turned murderer? Here is the Palatine. What wouldst thou more?
Upon him, soldiers, strike him to the ground.
Soldiers, spare the princely Palatine.
Down with the damned adulterous murderer. Kill him, I say. His blood be on my head.
And they kill the Palatine.
Run to the tower and ring the larum bell, that for the world I may excuse myself and tell the reason of this bloody deed.
Enter Edward in his nightgown and shirt.
How now? What means this sudden strange alarm? What wretched dame is this with blubbered cheeks and rent dishevelled hair?
Oh, my dear nephew, fly, fly the shambles, for thy turn is next.
What, my imperial aunt? Then break my heart.
Brave prince, be still. As I am nobly born, there is no ill intended to thy person.
Into Mentz, Trier, Brandenburg, Bohemia.
Where is my page? Bring me my two-handed sword.
Don't think I've done a Trier. Oh well. What is the matter? Is the court afire?
Who's that? The Emperor with his weapon drawn?
Though deadly sick, yet am I forced to rise to know the reason for this hurly-burly.
Princes, be silent. I will tell the cause, though suddenly a griping at my heart forbids my tongue his wonted course of speech. See you, this harlot traitress of my life, see you, this murderer stained to mine honor. These twain I found together in my bed, shamefully committing lewd adultery and heinously conspiring all your deaths. I mean your deaths that are not dead already. As for the King of Bohemia and myself, we are not of this world. We have our transports given in the bowl by this adulterous prince. Unless the poison work too strong with me before I have warned you of your harms, I will be brief in the relation. That he hath stained my bed, these eyes have seen. He have murdered 2 imperial kings. Our speedy deaths will be too sudden proof that he and she have bought and sold your lives to Saxon, Collen, and the English prince. Their ensigns spread before the walls tomorrow will all too suddenly bid you defiance. Now tell me, princes, have I not just cause to slay the murderer of so many souls? And have not all cause to applaud the deed? More would I utter, but the poison's force forbids my speech. You can conceive the rest.
Your Majesty, reach me your dying hand, with 1,000 thanks for this so just revenge. Oh, the poison's force begins to work.
The world may pity and applaud the deed.
Did never age bring forth such heinous acts?
My senses are confounded and amazed.
The God of heaven knows my unguiltiness.
And enter a messenger.
Arm, arm, my lords, we have descried afar an army of 10,000 men-at-arms.
Some run unto the walls, some draw up the sluice, some speedily let the portcullis down.
Now we may see the emperor's words are true. To prison with that wicked murderous whore.
And they exit. So that escalated quite quickly. More dead bodies, violence, sexual violence. It's throwing everything out of the pot. I do like the way that Alphonsus is sort of really into what he's doing here with his play acting of kill him, etc. Then Bohemia comes in and says, "I'm feeling a bit sick," and he goes, "Oh yeah, oh, I must remember to pretend to be sick, mustn't I? Yes." Sort of late remembering that, and then load of army of 10,000 men turned up as well. Whoa, Briony.
It's like a really dark, murdery farce, because you've also got Edward who keeps wandering back in his nightie, and I'm just, just all of it is so ridiculous. It is almost at like that farce level, but then it's got this dark, murdery side to, I don't know, give it a bit more credibility, but I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah. Lynn.
Yeah, I think farce is exactly it. And looking back, maybe that's how you play the beginning of I'm going to wake up my advisor in the middle of the night and then kill him. Just as he's saying, trust no one. Farce may be the only way to make this palatable, a way that Alphonsus so easily persuades Alexander to turn rapist just because, like, what is to be gained by that? And then this whole catching his wife with someone who looks like he must be her lover, but of course we know isn't odd. And
what is the motivation for Alexander going along with this? I mean, I know he's got revenge, but it seems like the focus of where this is all going has become very diffuse. Yeah. And the logic of why his character is doing things is sort of slightly unhinged. Eric?
Well, not to defend Alphonsus, but no, I'm not going to defend him. Just to say that I think the purpose I suspect, I've not read the play, but the reason that he gets Alexander to sleep with the princess is that he wants to frame him and have him caught and killed. Therefore, he doesn't have to worry about, someone surviving what he's been doing, basically. So he can remain in power.
Well, I understand what Alphonsus is doing. I don't understand quite why Alexander is. It feels like his revenge has become very diffuse.
Why is he so easily persuaded to that act? It doesn't seem to serve his intents at all.
Helen, sorry.
I was absolutely amazed by it. I was convinced that he was going to say no. Because, so far, Alexander, apart from the fact that he's taken on revenge for his father, has a moral core, or almost, insofar as anybody except the Empress does. Well, we're not sure about Hedwig's moral core because she only speaks in German and we don't understand it.
Lois?
Yeah, I couldn't really figure that out either, but what's odd is that Alphonsus says something like, prove that you're a man, and he says, if I don't do this, I'm a bastard villain or a villain bastard. And I thought, well, he was saying earlier that his father wasn't a villain, but now he's certainly proving that he's no bastard. He seems to have inherited his father's evil qualities. I don't know. It doesn't make much sense to me. He says that she's attractive enough to tempt him anyway, but that it's somehow part of his revenge. But it is hard to see what on earth it's got to do with it.
Unless he's lying and we just haven't found out yet. But I don't think that's what's going. What I found interesting, because of course that was immediately after the sort of overhearing the plotting scene. And what I quite liked about that was just Alexander's going, look, there's news. And Alphonsus is going, yeah, but I've got a key. Yeah, but let me tell you about this key. And I was going, oh, this is quite funny. And then, okay, what you're doing with the key is quite impressive. Eric?
What I was amused by is just Alphonsus is going, I'm dying, I'm gonna, the poisonous force forbids my speech, you can conceive the rest. And then when the messenger comes in, he's like, some onto the walls, some drop the sluice, do this, do that. And you're like, wait a minute. You'd think that, Mentz would or someone else would
Mentz, we don't think Mentz is very sharp on these things.
But the dragging of the Empress with trailing her by the hair. Come on. Anyway.
It's a particularly vicious moment. If you thought you were enjoying this, there's something interesting about that. We've been enjoying Alphonsus being evil, and then we're presented by something that actually is much more unpalatable in a weird way, and because we're being presented with direct action and something that lingers in a way that we haven't had earlier, whereas and dead is quite different. Briony, then Lois.
Yeah, it is a bit tenuous, but I'm just wondering whether or not Alexander has done this on the basis of he's been dared to do it. Hast not the heart. Is it just that? I bet you won't. I don't know.
Alexander is a youngish youth. Maybe he is susceptible to that kind of manipulation. Maybe. Lois.
Yeah, I assume that the Empress is wearing a wig that is somehow attached, to her body in such a way that this dragging is not going to be too awful, even though it's obviously humiliating. And she's saying, "Stab me," rather than "drag me by the hair." But I was trying to remember I think there are other characters who get dragged by the hair as well in drama. I was also thinking of Marston. I mean, when you mentioned that scene of the key, that's terribly like, I think, the opening of Antonio's Revenge, where Piero keeps gloating over his villainy, and his attendant keeps trying to tell him something, and then he finally says, "Oh, well, if you're not going to listen to me, I'm leaving." And I mean, it's a kind of cross purposes dialogue of two villains. It's I think he's thinking of the author is thinking of plays like Marston's, probably,
or the other way around. Who knows?
Well, yeah, true. It could be.
Or other plays that just don't exist anymore. It could be horribly cliched by this point. Anyway, we must move on to Act 4, Scene 1. And we return to enter Saxon and Richard with soldiers.
My lord of Cornwall, let us march before to speedy rescue of our dearest friends. The rearward, with the armed legions committed to the Prince of Collen's charge, cannot so lightly pass the mountain tops.
Let's summon suddenly unto our parley. I do not doubt but we need their helps. Collen with all his forces here.
Enter Collen with drums and an army.
Your holiness hath made good haste today, and like a beaten soldier lead your troops.
In time of peace, I am archbishop, and like a churchman can both sing and say, but when the innocent do suffer wrong, I cast my rotchet off the altar, and like a prince betake myself to arms.
Enter above Mentz, Trier, and Brandenburg, and so I'll have to pass Brandenburg to somebody else because of the interesting dancing we're doing. Elizabeth, I think you can read Brandenburg for a bit.
Great Prince of Saxony, what means these arms? Richard of Cornwall, what may this intend? Brother of Cologne, no more a churchman now? Instead of mitre and crozier's staff, have you beaten you to your helm and targe? Were you so merry yesterday as friends, cloaking your treason in your clown's attire?
Mentz, we return the traitor in thy face. To save our lives and to release our friends out of the Spaniards' deadly trapping snares, without intent of ill, this power is raised. Therefore, grave Prince, Marquis of Brandenburg, my loving cousin, as indifferent judge, to you, an aged peacemaker, we speak. Deliver, with safe conduct in our tents, Prince Edward and his bride, the Palatine, with every one of high or low degree that are suspicious of the King of Spain. So shall you see that in the selfsame hour we march to the walls with colors spread, we will cashier our troops and part good friends.
Alas, my lord, crave you the Palatine?
If craving will not serve, we will command.
Ah me, since your departure, good my lords, strange accidents of blood and death are happened.
My mind misgave a massacre this night.
How does Prince Edward then?
How does my daughter?
How goes it with the Palsgrave of the Rain?
Prince Edward and his bride do live in health, and shall be brought unto you when you please.
Let them be presently delivered.
Lives not the Palsgrave too?
In heaven or hell he lives, and reaps the merit of his deeds.
What damned hand hath butchered the prince?
Oh, that demand is needless. Who but he that seeks to be the butcher of us all? But vengeance and revenge shall light on him.
Patient, noble princes, hear the rest. The two great kings of Bohemia and Castile, God comfort them, lie now at the point of death, both poisoned by the Palsgrave yesterday.
How is that possible? So must my sister, the Palatine himself, and Alexander, who drank out of the bowl, be poisoned too.
Nor is that heinous deed alone the cause, though cause enough to ruin monarchies. He had defiled with lust the imperial bed, and by the emperor, was slain.
Oh, worthy, guiltless prince! Oh, had he fled!
But say, where is the Empress? Where's my sister?
Not burnt to ashes yet, but shall be shortly.
I hope Her Majesty will live to see 100,000 flattering turncoat slaves, such as your holiness, die a shameful death.
She is in prison and attends her trial.
Oh, strange, heartbreaking, mischievous, intense. Give me my children if you love your lives. No safety is in this enchanted fort. Oh, see, in happy hour, there comes my daughter and loving son, scaped from the massacre.
And enter Edward and Hedwig.
My body lives, although my heart be slain. O princes, this hath been the dismalest night that ever eye of sorrow did behold. Here lay the Palsgrave, weltering in his blood, dying Alphonsus, standing over him. Upon the other hand, the King of Bohemia, still looking when his poisoned bulk would break. But that which pierced my soul with nature's touch was my tormented aunt, with blubbered cheeks, torn bloody garments, and dishevelled hair, waiting for death, deservedly or no, that knows the searcher of all human thoughts, for these devices are beyond my reach.
Sag dort, lieb meine Tochter, wo wart thou dieselbe Nacht?
Als wo sollt ich sem, ich war in Bett.
Warst du allein, oder warst thou gar verschrocken?
Ich ha Mist Audes gemeint, dass ich wollt auren, gest Fläfne, haben aber Mitternacht kam meine Brautgrum, bunt sie fläfet bei mir, bis wir mit dem Getunnel erwacht waren.
What says she? Came her bridegroom to her at midnight?
Nephew, I see you are not overreached. Although she slipped out of your arms at first, you seized her surely ere you left the chase.
But left your grace, your bride, alone in bed? Or did she run together in the alarum?
Alas, my lords, this is no time to jest. I lay full sadly in my bed alone, not able for my life to sleep a wink, till that the alarum bell began to ring, and then I started for my weary couch.
How now? This rhymes not with my daughter's speech. She says you found her bed and lay with her.
Not I, your highness, did mistake her. Not I, your highness, did mistake her words.
Deny it not, Prince Edward. 'Tis an honor.
My lords, I know no reason to deny it. To have found her bed, I would have given 1,000,000.
Hedwig, der Fürst sagt, hat nicht bei dir schlafen.
Es gefällt ihm, also zum sagen, aber ich habe es wohl gefallen.
She says you are disposed to jest with her, but yesternight she felt it in good earnest.
Uncle, these jests are too unsavory, ill-suited to these times, and please me not. Lab ich bin you geschlafen yesternight?
Ich warum sollt fragen?
Edward, I tell thee 'tis no jesting matter. Say plainly, wast thou by her, aye or no?
As I am prince, true heir to England's crown, I never touched her body in a bed.
Das hast du gefallen, oder holle mich der Devil.
Nephew, take heed. You hear the princess's words.
It is not she, nor you, nor all the world shall make me say I did another's deed.
Another's deed? What, think'st thou her a whore?
And Saxon strikes Edward.
She may be whore, and thou a villain too. Struck me the emperor, I will strike again.
Content you, princes, buffet not like boys.
Hold you the one, I will hold the other.
Oh, Herr Gott, help, help, ich arms Kind.
Soldiers, lay hands upon the Prince of Wales, convey him speedily into a prison, and load his legs with grievous bolts of iron. Some bring the whore, my daughter, from my sight. And thou, smooth Englishman, to thee I speak. My hate extends to all thy nation. Pack thee out of my sight, and that with speed. Your English practices have all too long muffled our German eyes. Pack, I say.
Although your grace have reason for your rage, yet be not like a madman to your friends.
My friends, I scorn the friendship of such mates that seek my daughter's spoil and my dishonor. But I will teach the boy another lesson. His head shall pay the ransom of his fault.
His head?
And thy head too. Oh, how my heart doth swell. Was there no other prince to mock but me? First woo, then marry her, then lie with her, and having had the pleasure of her bed, call her a whore in open audience. None but a villain and a slave would do it. My lords of Mentz, of Trier and Brandenburg, make ope the gates, receive me as a friend. I'll be a scourge unto the English nation.
Your grace shall be the welcomest guest alive.
None but a madman would do such a deed.
Then, Collen, count me mad, for I will do it. I'll set my life and land upon the hazard, but I will throughly sound this deceit. What? Will your grace leave me or follow me?
No, Saxon, no, I will not follow thee and leave Prince Richard in so great extremes.
Then I defy you both, and so farewell.
Yet, Saxon, hear me speak before thou go. Look to the prince's life as to thine own. Each perished hair that falleth from his head by thy default shall cost a Saxon city. Henry of England will not lose his heir, and so farewell, and think upon my words.
Away, I do disdain to answer thee. Pack thou with shame again into thy country. I'll have a cockboat at my proper charge, and send the imperial crown, which thou hast won, to England by Prince Edward after thee.
Exeunt Saxon and the others, Richard and Cologne remain.
Answer him not, Prince Richard. He is mad. Choler and grief have robbed him of his senses. Like accident to this was never heard.
Break heart and die. Fly hence, my troubled spirit. I am not able for to underbear the weight of sorrow which doth bruise my soul. Oh, Edward. Oh, sweet Edward, all my life. Oh, noble Cologne, last of all my hopes, the only friend in my extremities, if thou dost love me, as I know thou dost, unsheathe thy sword and rid me of this sorrow.
Away with abject thoughts, fly, princely Richard, rouse up thyself and call thy senses home. Shake off this base pusillanimity. Shake off this base pusillanimity and cast about to remedy these wrongs.
Alas, I see no means of remedy.
Then hearken to my counsel and advice. We will entrench ourselves not far from hence with these small powers we have, and send for more. If they do make assault, we will defend. If violence be offered to the prince, we will rescue him with venture of our lives. Let us with patience attend advantage, that time may reveal the author of these treasons. For why, undoubtedly the sweet young princess, foully beguiled by night with cunning show, hath to some villain lost her maidenhead.
Oh, that I knew the foul incestuous wretch. Thus would I tear him with my teeth and nails. Had Saxon sense, he would conceive so much, and not revenge on guiltless Edward's life.
Persuade yourself, he will be twice advised before he offer wrong unto the prince.
In that good hope, I will have patience. Come, gentle prince, whose pity to a stranger is rare and admirable, not to be spoken. England cannot requite this gentleness.
Tush, talk not of requital. Let us go to fortify ourselves within our trench.
And they exit. Well, that's taking even more of a dark turn. It's like we started digging, and the hole is just getting deeper and deeper and deeper of the various crimes that have been set off by Alphonsus here. Yeah. Thoughts from the room. I'm sure everyone was sort of hoping, Alexander, maybe it was all a lie. Maybe he wasn't. No, it's don't worry, it gets worse. Lynn.
Yeah, definitely. It was why I was hoping Alexander wouldn't go through with it, and the play doesn't even give us time to breathe it before it becomes clear that it's already happened. So I'm kind of feeling like Alphonsus is cleverer than we thought. Not only has he kind of set up Alexander to eventually be taken down for what he's done, but because nobody knows what's happened, all they know is someone has deflowered the princess. He's driven a wedge among he's put his enemies at each other's throats. So he's destroyed the alliance of his enemies by doing this. So he just likes to sow chaos, doesn't he?
I mean, he's really fitting into that sort of Vice character type template of, he's just constantly just sowing disorder and all around it. And yeah, he couldn't really have predicted precisely how this would play out. I mean, he probably did, but there's no guarantee how this is all going to play out. And the what happens between Saxon and Edward, and then obviously Richard on his behalf. With just ripples and consequences that are just getting more complicated, and a world that's just getting nastier. Everybody's being split apart. Eric.
Yeah, I was going to say that it escalated very quickly after that scene with the where he bursts into the Empress chambers and grabs Palsgrave and so on and so forth, and the Empress, and it just sort of he says, ring the bell, and very efficient soldiers just go, ring the bell, and they've rung the bell already, somewhere in between those two, between him saying that and, the next bit. And sort of manages to gather all the forces he needs. He's ready for it, which is kind of weird. I mean, I suppose it makes sense in the context of what he's like, but yes. What I found interesting was sort of Collen going, now, let's be nice to each other, but then is ready to sort of step. I don't know, Collen is stepping into sort of his own, I guess, sort of with becoming equal to Richard in sort of on. You can see the camps dividing, is what I mean.
Well, we've had a number of characters who haven't felt really sharply defined because they've been in a room full of lots of other characters. But Bohemia's dead. There is this Palatine's dead. This sense of they've got to come into focus because they're increasingly the last one standing. He's able to step forward and be counted in a way that I don't think quite had felt defined before. Briony.
Yeah, and I think in the same way, Edward's kind of come into a sharper relief here as this real tragic, sad sack kind of a character. That line about, I lay full sadly in my bed alone, I feel your pain, Edward. But also then he's, I would have given $1 million to find her bed. He's just this poor tragic, whereas I guess Hedewick, we haven't had the chance to feel that much for her yet, because she just speaks in German and doesn't really say much thus far. And is being very overshadowed by Saxon, her father, who is a much more forceful personality in this context, and presenting us with all sorts of toxic problems that is common of the period. It is of its time. What that therefore does to how we might think about staging it today is a question that the room can cogitate on. I don't think we need to come up with any answers now, especially as we don't know precisely how it's all going to end. I don't want to start doing quite morbid a question mark, but really just a show of hands from the room. Who thinks Alphonsus is going to survive the play? No hands there. What about Alexander? Do you think he's going to survive the play? Is he going to be alive by the end? Do you think he's going to get punished at the end, Alexander? What in prison? What
What about Mentz? Is Mentz going to survive?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. I think we can probably give Edward and Richard an automatic pass because of who they are. But yeah.
The Empress.
I'm
not entirely sure she'll make it through.
Yeah, they're talking about Was it burning at the stake they were talking about earlier? So that's not looking good.
Yeah.
Well, that's standard for treason of women is burning standard.
So that's going well. I mean, it's interesting this session. In a sense, we have this Act 3 was just this never-ending scene. You can break it up into scenes, but in a sense, it's one unit of action of this. What starts off as hi, it's the revels, everybody's in their place. Then this new social order, and Lynn was saying earlier, what happens to this social order? This upturning of social order, and then by the end of the scene, the social order has been upturned in a much more dramatic fashion because now nobody knows who's in charge or where they stand, and up is down and left is right, and nobody knows where they are. Other thoughts before we go to final thoughts? Anyone wants to throw in? Helen.
We've had 2 examples of people saying Upsy Dutch, and that somewhat puzzled me.
I'm sure we've had it somewhere before as well. It rings a bell. It might just because I did a pass at the edit, so I may have just remember it from then. But it rings a bell. Is it a toast of some description?
I really don't know. It doesn't. I mean, it's very difficult to get from the context too.
Oh well, there's a mystery. There's a mystery for us to
Any
unpack.
German speakers like to put in their 2 penneth? I was admiring Lois's accent.
I don't know. I mean, I think Upsy. There's also Upsy Daisy and so on. So I doubt that it's a German word. Upsy. I mean, usually it just sort of means what turn over, or chaos.
That's why I thought it was a toast thing. It would be Upsy.
Yeah, could be. Yeah, Upsy.
Kind of thing. Briony.
I was just going to say as well, like they similar, like a sort of chaotic foreignness in terms of like the way, if somebody's talking gibberish, you could say they're talking double Dutch. I just wondered if it was that kind of sort of semi-othering.
Yeah, I wonder if you get it in the Shoemaker's Holiday, where there's all this kind of pseudo-Dutch.
Yes, well, it won't be that long before we find out, because it's a couple of months away probably, but it's you can see it distantly in the horizon as we rapidly run out of the 16th century to do. There's not that much left to clear out. Anyway, I think it's time for final thoughts. We've all been here for the play so far. We've got 2/3 of the play. It's getting dark. But nobody who's doing the evil things is being pretended to be nice. And in fact, I don't know how many people we could classify as nice. Whether that's enough of a coverage to make this play land. We've been enjoying it for the most part, but where are we now placed? Eric, any final thoughts?
Well, as the guy who sort of recommended rape and murder, it was so weird to be that character, to sort of going, yes, she's betrayed me, she's done this, she's done that. No, it's just, and also I think there's a lot of stage business that we've not talked about in that scene where he's, sort of not the behind the arras, but sort of just how he gets, like how this stage is laid out. It must be a huge stage, or he disappears into the room and then he comes back out, or, it reminded me a bit of Arden and Faversham, where you've got kind of, you don't actually see the murder, but maybe it could be, upstairs, downstairs kind of thing. I don't know. It's such a weird play to because it drops you right in the middle. You've got this sort of narrative going, Fun times. I mean, you know that Alphonsus is going to murder people. He's told us this. He's been honest about this. And then it just drops you right into that sort of moment of, oh, it just, I don't know, it's just a very interesting moment to sort of, very interesting play to you to read and perform.
Yeah, I mean, it's that question. If the play lures the audience into a false sense of security of going, "Hi, we're enjoying this murderer," and then the acts become much more real, and I think it's that hair-pulling moment when you can talk about doing evil things, you can have relatively tame murders going on. In fact, the most vicious murder we've seen is probably by as close to the hero as we get, with Richard brutally executing his would-be assassin. That maybe there's a structural point to that, of actually looking at the audience and going, "Oh, you like this kind of thing, do you?" That may be too much of a fig leaf. I don't know. Lynn, any final thoughts?
Yeah. Talking about that moment. I have some other thoughts about why that's so uncomfortable. I mean, it's one thing when Alphonsus is this plotting Machiavellian villain, and the people that he's engaging with in his very evil way are also politically powerful, important men, his rival for the emperorship, and his rival supporters, princes and bishops and other powerful and not particularly admirable men. That's one thing. But when he turns his evil towards the women in the play and victimizes them, he's really punching down. And I think that's part of what makes that moment so uncomfortable. I mean, the physical act of dragging his wife around her bedchamber by her hair, of course, is really quite shocking. But his manipulation of Alexander to deflower Hedwig is also really uncomfortable. And I think it's because the status of his victims changes, because the women are really marginalized in this political situation. They're really just collateral damage, and it wasn't their choice to engage in this way. Whereas Richard and even Edward and Alexander, they have more agency. So, how do you handle that, and that sort of idea that you draw your audience in and then kind of make them see how kind of disgusting their engagement with the story might be seen? That might be one. Yeah, but the audience's engagement with this would be very complex.
Lois, any final thoughts?
Yeah, of course, I tend to see it in the context of all these villain as hero plays. And I don't know if you want all that sort of context stuff, but it goes back pretty much to things like Salamis, and especially the Jew of Malta, which I think is kind of the great ancestor, because that's one also. And except in the Jew of Malta, the hero has some justification at the beginning, and then you go off him more and more as he commits more and more horrible acts. And then there's the Revenger's Tragedy, where again the hero has justification and revenge for his father and for his betrothed who was poisoned by the wicked duke. And then he kills more and more people. And then, there are the people in Marston's plays where you often get somebody who's a revenger that you sympathize with. I mean, in the case of Antonia's Revenge, you've got an archetypal villain who is just horrible. And then you've also got a revenger who becomes almost equally horrible by the end. I don't know if, this is such an established genre, assuming that we're not dealing with a very early play, which I think is impossible, just given the style and so on. But perhaps audiences were kind of geared to, as one is in many kinds of films, you enjoy all the violence, and you have a vague idea that there's somebody sympathetic, but you're made perhaps increasingly, or the film's justification is that it's showing you how horrible these things are. Whether you actually think they're horrible or are just wallowing in it is, I suppose, up to you.
Yes, we are also at that point of sort of being able to start feeling around, feeling, when do we think this play was written? Because I've been deliberately not saying, partly because there is disagreement. Does it feel like something from the 1590s or later? This room is reasonably familiar with the 1590s now, actually. There's very little of it you haven't done at some point. Does it feel like it's from then, or do you feel like it's more early 17th century? Lois has professed an opinion, but other opinions are available. Where do you feel it might want to live? You don't have to express an opinion on that point, but it is an open question. Elizabeth, any final thoughts?
Yeah, briefly, I kind of wanted to say, what they just said to Eric and Lois and everyone who's spoken before me. But I had a few brief ideas. One of the first ones was, I think that as a cultural artifact, this play is a little bit cumbersome. I was just thinking about like how you would what kind of theoretical analysis you would do on it and what kind of analysis you might make of it. And I was thinking in terms of gender, it's a little bit problematic. In terms of the use of the other languages, I think it is something to discuss and to think about in terms of farce, in terms of culture, what they're trying to say about German people and the Germanic language in general. One of the things I really like about the play is that Alphonsus, for me, really does lead the text. We've done a few plays where the central character is not necessarily the person who's eponymous. So, for example, the tragedy of Miriam, I feel like the main character was Salome in that. But in this one, Alphonsus is really leading the way. And I'm very, very sad that I won't be able to be in tomorrow's session.
Yes, but the video will always be there for everyone out there. Briony, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I'm also gutted to be missing tomorrow's session and the conclusion of this one. It took me a little while to settle into it. I wasn't really sure where I was or what I was doing yesterday's session, but today, I don't know, I've really enjoyed it. I like the feel of it, of how it is so ridiculous, but also very, very dark at the same time. I think the problematic elements, I would be tempted to lean hard into all of that and make it very much, frame it as a product of its time, but not try and clean any of that up, because particularly the Johnny Foreigner aspect of it is so integral that you couldn't get rid of it. And I think also it would be very difficult to get rid of the misogyny as well. So I think you just lean hard into it and make a real joke of these different nations not being able to understand each other, and just the ridiculousness that has come out of it with a hint of evilness too. I found it very enjoyable, especially that first scene that we had today. Really, really silly with the assassins and everything in German. That was just, I think to see that actually on its feet would be something to behold.
Yeah, because it has the same sort of questions of tone that Marston has, actually. That question of where is the balance between the comic level, the darker elements that sometimes turn on a sixpence. Doesn't have the sort of satirical edge to it, or maybe it does and we just don't know what the satire is. Helen, any final thoughts?
Yeah, this is a seriously weird play to me. I really, really am having difficulty in placing it. I mean, I can see all the reflections of all the other play. There seems to be something in it of every single play we've ever done, which is somewhat unnerving. I mean, when I came in, I thought Bohemia, Holy Roman Empire, all this, and I was looking for all the evidences of the marriage of the king's daughter to the Frederick of Bohemia, but I don't see any of that there. I really don't, and I'm have to reserve judgment on this one, because it's immensely enjoyable and totally appalling at the same time, which is not something, it doesn't feel, somehow it doesn't feel right, but I'm not entirely sure why.
Sarah, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I've kind of had the opposite experience to Briony. I really enjoyed it yesterday. And then today it's kind of lost me a bit. I really liked Elizabeth's word that she used, cumbersome. I kind of feel it's become slightly cumbersome. And I'm trying to think why. And I think it might be something to do with the lack of interiority we've had today from Alphonsus, because like yesterday, you know, he was set up straight away as the kind of, you know, anti-hero, big villain where we're going to love to hate him. Bam, there he was. And okay, we had that moment with the poisoning, putting the poison in the cup, but was kind of vaguely entertaining. But we haven't really, I mean, he's done a lot of quick thinking on his feet, which is impressive, but we haven't really had much sort of interiority from him to balance that out. And I think for me, that is what is missing. It's all been so externalized, this Act 3 and then the beginning of Act 4. I don't really know. It doesn't appear to be one thing nor the other. It's not really dark fast for me, although I do agree with Briony that if you're going to stage it, that would be what you'd have to do. You'd have to lean really hard into it. It's kind of very discomforting in some ways, but then in other ways, it's really, I don't think, discomforting enough given what's happening. It kind of pushes some buttons, but then glosses over others. And I'm like, well, okay, is it one thing, is it another? I can't really, I've had trouble getting into it today. And the thing is, yeah, Alphonsus has not been today for me as a compelling a villain as he was yesterday. But neither is Richard a particularly compelling hero, you know, such as it is. This is a play without a hero, really. I don't really care about him. I don't really care about any of them, actually. That is the problem. The only ones that I care about really are the women. And that is because, as Lynn said, the inequality of power is so extreme and they get treated so badly. It's like you have to sympathize with them. You have to be horrified by that. But it's like, all of the main protagonists, I just don't give a monkeys about them. And I find it hard to, it doesn't matter if I don't like any of the characters in the play, but I have to want to understand how they tick. I have to want to kind of get into their minds and follow their motivations. And I had that yesterday with Alphonsus, but I haven't had it today. So I'm struggling slightly, but hey, tomorrow could be a whole different day.
Tomorrow is definitely going to be a very different day in various ways. I mean, the thing about today is, in a sense, we've just had an ongoing crowd scene for most of it.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of people on stage. Alphonsus has done an awful lot of speechifying to the room, but you're right, he hasn't done anything, or very little, that was in, shall we say, is in a side. You know, in a sense, the plot is just simply been turning over, but also turning over incredibly quickly. You know, we paused several times during the big Act 3 scene, which is actually made, you know, is one unit of action. It's a constant thing of then and there's this, and he's been poisoned, and this person wanders on, and this. So it's crowded with incident and action, and I think it's possibly that it's, you know, the issues within the play aside, I think structurally actually it works perfectly well. I think it's just the nature of the way we're doing these sessions that is getting in the way of that. I'm not wholly sure about how whether going full on, not so much fast, but, you know, dark, the humour of it is actually might be a trap. I certainly expect the audience to react. I don't think they necessarily want to be reacting with too much in the way of laughter. I'm really not sure. But that's
It's
you know,
that thing. Are they laughing because they're entertained, or are they laughing because it's kind of nervous laughter because they're appalled?
Yeah. And you know, any reaction is good to a degree. You know, I like an audience that makes noises. I'm often hoping for an audience to go oh, or ooh, or you know, oh, ooh, much more than laughter or any of the other common the things. So yeah, we will continue exploring this question next time when we complete the play. There's another third of the play to go. There's a lot of water to go under this particular bridge. All that remains is to thank all the wonderful readers for all their wonderful reading. Thank you very much, and goodbye. Strange accidents of blood and death are happened.